Hi, AP Psych. Today we are talking about attraction, both what might attract you to your friends or your friends to you, but also this question about romantic attraction. So, why do we fall in love with some people and not with others? So, you probably already have some ideas in mind, and to be honest, some of them are probably correct. So, one thing that springs to a lot of people's minds right away is physical attractiveness, and that can't be discarded. Okay, so when they've done studies about what attracts someone to someone else, physical attractiveness, that first impression really does matter. Now, it can't end there. That's not the end all or be all about whether you're going to find someone attractive in the long term. But in studies of blind dates, and there's a study at the U of M that dealt with like people dancing and then seeing whether or not they wanted to dance with that person again. Basically, when it's a snapshot of a person, the only thing you have to judge on is not like it's not like their characteristics that are deep rooted and hard to find. It's like that gut first impression, that physical piece, and that tends to overwhelm everything else. So, do you want to go on a second date with this person? Well, are they attractive physically? Then people, if it's yes, then yes. If it's no, then it's a no. Um, there have been a lot of studies about how people that are more physically attractive tend to actually date more frequently, but do know that culture plays a role about what people find attractive physically. So there's different sorts of features that might be considered more or less attractive based on the culture. Now, if we look at the same topic, physical attractiveness, from an evolutionary psychology perspective, that starts to ask, why historically over the long span of time has physical attractiveness been important? And what evolutionary psychologists would say is, if the outside of the body looks good, so if it's, for example, symmetrical, so very even on the left side and the right side, it probably means that internally the person also is like functioning at like a full level. So evolutionary psychology is all about like, can we survive as a species? Will there be more kids so that we can continue as a species? And if someone's physically attractive on the outside, it probably means they don't have a lot of defects on the inside that would keep them from being able to reproduce. So they would say physical attractiveness matters because it leads to more children. Um, that being said, as far as across, like, even though culturally there's certain things that are seen as more attractive or less attractive, on the whole, our book talks about several studies about how averages are actually the most attractive. So in this picture on the bottom, there's a few different people, and it's like, which one is most attractive? And what most people say is actually the compilation face, which is of those three, but also like 50 other people, is actually considered to be the most attractive by most cultures. We like a face that's that is symmetrical, that is not really too out there in any sort of way. It's very average. Um, but one other term that we should talk about is this idea of a halo effect with physical attractiveness. So if you imagine like a halo, you might think of like an angel. It's like a whoa, like everything around that person. If someone is seen as being physically attractive, a lot of times this thing called the halo effect happens, where you have to imagine that people think of that person with almost a little glow around them. Like, clearly they're physically attractive, as subjectively measured, but people tend to not just assume they're physically attractive, they assume things that are positive about their personality because they're physically attractive. So they think that they're going to be timely, and they're going to be organized, and they're going to be a good worker, and they're going to be all these things. So, if someone's not physically attractive, people don't necessarily assume those other good things about them. But if they are physically attractive, people tend to assume the best about them in other venues as well, whether or not it's deserved. Okay, some other things that come into play with whether or not we're going to be attracted to somebody is straight up similarity. So there's been this long running argument about whether or not like opposites attract or people that are more similar attract. And basically all the research shows that people that are similar to each other are more attracted to others. There's a positive correlation between similarity and liking somebody else. Now, they don't have to be into absolutely everything that you're into, but you tend to have similar values or similar interests or things like that that tend to draw you to another person. And we tend to like people that are very similar to us in lots of different ways, including physical attractiveness. So there's this idea called the matching hypothesis where we're kind of trying to find our match. Who is our match? We tend to surround ourselves, like if we're talking physical attractiveness, our friends tend to be about the same level of physical attractiveness as we are. Our partners tend to be about the same level of physical attractiveness as we are. There's things that could change those things a little bit, but we tend to try to find people that are about our same intelligence level, that are about our same social class. We tend to like things that are very similar to us when you look at the big picture. We also like to think about people, this sounds kind of shallow to be honest, based around what we get out of the relationship. So it's a couple of different theories. They're basically similar. Some books call it the reward theory of attraction, and sometimes they call it exchange theory. But basically, does this relationship, if I have a relationship with this person, does it have more rewards or more costs? Sorry, costs is cut off. But what am I getting out of this versus what am I getting? I want to be getting more out of it than I'm giving. And we tend to get more than give if we're more similar to the person. So, when we talk about similarity in distance or similarity in location, that idea of proximity is super important. So who do we tend to be attracted to? We tend to be attracted to people that we see the most, that literally we surround ourselves with. You are more likely to fall in love with somebody that is here at Matamidi High School than you are to fall in love with someone at a high school in South Dakota. Simply because you'll never run into them unless you move to South Dakota. So physical proximity matters, and some of that's because of something called the mere exposure effect. Well, it doesn't always happen. What tends to happen is that the more times that we see something or that we hear something or that we are exposed to something in some way, the more that we like that thing. So think about like with music. The first time you hear a song, you're like, okay. And then you listen to it again and again and again. And once you kind of know the song, you tend to like it more. The more that you see a person, the more you tend to like that person. You get used to them. They become familiar. We like things that are familiar. And this is even true for ourselves. You can see in this image here, one thing that we're really used to that kind of drives people crazy. When you're taking selfies of yourself and sometimes you just look wrong, there's ways to flip the image or not. Essentially, when we are viewing ourselves in a mirror, we're always seeing a reverse image from what other people see of us. So if we were going to look at a picture and one is like a mirror image of ourselves and one is like a not mirror image of ourselves, we will almost always choose the mirror image because that's what we're used to seeing in a mirror. We see again and again and again. Like you think about where you part your hair or how you do whatever. If you have something that's not symmetrical on your face, you're used to seeing it on a certain side. And we don't like it when it's the way that everyone else sees it, which is just kind of weird when you start thinking about it. But that mirror exposure effect matters. So the more you see something, the more you tend to like it. And that's true for other people too. We also tend to like people that basically share. Again, as long as it's not too much. So we like people that open up and self-disclose. So, if you're willing to open up to somebody, people see that as you letting them in. People tend to like that. You know more about them. You become more personal. And that can be a good way to get to know people and actually have them like you more. If it's too much, then you're going to turn them off. So got to be careful about that. The last one on this page, I think, is actually one of the more important ones. Reciprocal liking. We tend to like people who like us. So if you want someone to like you, maybe you should just show that you're interested. Because for a lot of people, that's a big piece of it. We all want to be liked. Everybody. Not by everybody, but we all want other people to like us. And we like it when other people like us. We like them more. So show that you like people. Don't try to hide it. Okay, now when we look at romantic love specifically, the major study has been done by Sternberg here. We saw him before in the intelligence unit. He had a triangle theory of intelligence as well, the 3-part theory of intelligence. Here he has a 3-part theory of love. So just to review, his 3-part theory of intelligence was that intelligence was made up of analytical, creative, and practical skills. Here, he's talking about a triangle theory of love, a 3-part theory of love, where he says, basically, love, like true love, consummate love, great, perfect love, the love that you want, has intimacy, passion, and commitment. So intimacy is dealing with closeness, like think emotional closeness. They get you, they understand you, they know all your secrets. Passion deals more with lust and like physical pieces of love. Commitment obviously is in it for the long haul. And you can see along here that he talks about how, like, if you have them all, you're in the middle of that triangle. But if you only have some of them, it's going to be a different sort of love. If it's only intimacy, it's only like emotional closeness, it's just going to be liking that person. If we go around in a circle, companionate love is intimacy versus commitment. You're close and you're sticking together, but there's not really any passion. Empty love is just commitment. You're in it, but you're not even close. Fatuous love, passion plus commitment. There's the physical side. You're in it for a long time, but you're not really like emotionally close to this person. It could just be infatuation. It could be romantic love where there's passion and intimacy, but there's no commitment at all. But what Sternberg says is what you want is the whole triangle: intimacy, passion, and commitment. So that's some basics from this module. If you have any questions, let me know.